Hi everybody, I am here this morning to do a reading progress for my February TBR. The first book I want to talk about is The Wake Up Call by Beth O'Leary. This is a romance book about a hotel that is run by two people named Izzy and Lucas, and they are tasked with returning lost wedding rings to the people in the hotel who misplaced them. This book is really funny, and I love how the romance builds up between Izzy and Lucas. This is on my Gilmore Girls TBR because Izzy reminds me of Lorelai. Lucas reminds me of Michelle, and the hotel is reminiscent of the Independence Inn or the Dragonfly Inn. The next three books I wanted to talk about are the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. This is a trio of romance novels that is good for Valentine's Day and Black History Month combined. My favorite book in this series is Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and I was just looking through book recommendations for your favorite Gilmore Girls character, and for some reason this book was a recommendation for Luke, and I don't know why. Unless the guy in this book is supposed to be representative of Luke, I'm really not sure. But these books have really good disability representation in them too. Like, Act Your Age, Eve Brown deals with anti-autistic ableism, which I didn't really like because I know people who are autistic. Take a Hint, Danny Brown. There's good representation in this book of death of a close family member and general anxiety disorder, which is what I have. I have general anxiety. And then in Get a Life, Chloe Brown, it's healing after abusive relationship. And I love all of these characters. They were really fun to read about. Sarah Adams actually recommended this author to me, so I appreciate her for the recommendation. The next book I wanted to talk about is Reputation by Lex Croucher. I have read a couple of other books by this author. One is called Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, which is a sapphic retelling of King Arthur. The third book was Trouble, which was a Regency era romance book. The third book was her most recent release called Not for the Faint of Heart, which is a sapphic retelling of Robin Hood. And this book is about a girl named Georgiana who goes to live with her aunt and uncle for the summer in the English countryside. And it's basically Mean Girls with a touch of the episode of Gilmore Girls where Emily asks Rory to do the cotillion ball where she's introduced into rich society. So this book gets 4 stars. This book gets 3.5 stars. And the Brown Sisters series gets 4 stars. The next book is a historical fiction by Jojo Moyes called After You. I read her book Me Before You last year, which I really enjoyed. And this is set during World War II, I think. It doesn't actually say what time period it's in, but I think it's World War II. I really love her writing. It really transports you into the time period that she's writing about. The next book that I read for the past couple weeks is The Bridges of Madison County by Robert James Waller. Me and my friend Christy, one of my theater friends from New Hampshire, are doing a buddy read of this. So I cannot really give a full review of this book until after we discuss it. So this will be reviewed in a later video. The next book that I read is A Holly Jolly Diwali. This is about celebrating the Indian holiday of Diwali. And I like reading books about other cultures' holidays because it's really educational for me. And I gave this book 4.5 stars. The next book is called Ready or Not by Carapace Bastone. This book and another book I listened to called Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young handles the unwanted pregnancy trope very well. I cannot relate to the experiences that either of these couples go through because we are not planning on having kids, but I really liked the relationship development both in this book between Eve and Shep and in Out on a Limb between Bo and Wen. Out on a Limb is my buddy read with Anna for this month, so I will be reviewing that next month once me and Anna have our discussion. I gave Ready or Not 4 stars, and I gave Out on a Limb 5 stars because of the disability representation and the romance. In this book and Out on a Limb were recommended to me by Rachel Catherine. So thank you, Rachel. The next book is by Curtis Sittenfeld. It is called Eligible, and it is a modern retelling of Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice. So I read my first book by Curtis Sittenfeld last year when I was reading the backlist for Reese Witherspoon's book club. And I decided to give this author a second chance because A, I love Pride and Prejudice, and B, I just couldn't get into her other book called Romantic Comedy because it was set during the pandemic and it hit too close to home for me. But I love this book, and I love how Curtis Sittenfeld retold Pride and Prejudice. I thought she did a great job. The next book is Hidden Figures by Margot Lee Shetterly, which was recommended to me by Olive at A Book Olive, and the movie based on this book came out in 2012, and we were unable to watch it last weekend because we could not find it for free on streaming, and we thought we owned a DVD, but apparently we do not have it, so we're going to have to watch it at a later date and rent it from the library. I gave this book 4.5 stars and the movie 8 out of 10 on IMDb. The next book was also recommended to me by Olive at A Book Olive, and it's called American Sirens by Kevin Hazard, and this is a history of the EMS system in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Olive is from Pittsburgh, so she was able to connect to this book because she's from that area. And I just thought this book was really interesting because you don't really know a lot about the history of how certain groups of people come together. So this book got 4.5 stars. The next book I'm reading, I borrowed from my mother-in-law, Sally, and it's called The Life Impossible. This book is by the same author who wrote The Midnight Library, which I read at the end of December. And both of these books talk about really heavy topics such as death and suicide and stuff like this. And there's really powerful writing in here. I will read you one thing that I liked. There was a wild cat in the road, strutting slowly, its mind surprisingly calm and oblivious to the concept of roads. It was a beautiful, majestic, magnificent creature as I stopped to let it by. Even though this passage is short, I just love Matt Haig's description here. I think it's very beautiful. And it makes me think of like my cat Madeline that I used to have when I lived in New Hampshire. The next book that I'm reading is 1984 by George Orwell. Last year is part of my experiment where I reread books that I read in school to see if my opinions of them have changed. I reread Animal Farm for the first time since middle school, and I first read Animal Farm when I was 13, and the themes of it went way over my head. But now they're pretty pertinent because of our current political situation. And 1984 is basically set in a dystopian time when people are being heavily watched. And I am on page 184. A book that I am listening to, an audiobook that is very similar to this, is a translated Japanese book called The Memory Police, which I am reading as part of my books that were published when Friends and Gilmore Girls were on TBR. And this book was originally released in 1994, and it was recommended to me by Books in Lala. And I am really enjoying it. I am on chapter 11 in the audiobook of The Memory Police. I haven't started this quite yet, but I'm going to be starting it today. This is an essay collection about feminism, and I'm very excited to read it and learn more about feminism. This book was also mentioned in one of Books in Lala's rating books from 2004 videos, even though apparently this book was published in 2005. This book is by the same author as the person who wrote the book P.S. I Love You. I read P.S. I Love You last year before we watched the movie. Well, actually, P.S. I Love You is a series of 2 books. One is called P.S. I Love You. The sequel is called P.S. I Still Love You. And both of those books were combined into the movie P.S. I Love You, which has Lisa Kudrow and Gerard Butler and and Hilary Swank and Kathy Bates in it, to name a few actors. I am currently on page 289, and this book is basically a series of email correspondences between the main character, Rosie, and her family and her friends. It's okay. I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. The next book I'm reading / listening to, I'm doing a tandem read of We Will Be Jaguars, which was the Reese's Book Club pick for November 2024, and it is by Nemonte Nanquimo and Mitch Anderson, and it is a memoir of a woman who is from a Native American tribe from the Amazon rainforest. And I am on chapter 10 in my tandem read right now and almost done with part 1 of the book. So I'm really enjoying this so far, and I don't know much about this Native American tribe, so it's really fun to learn about them. The next book that I'm reading is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Kathleen and I are doing this for one of our February buddy reads for our Gilmore Girls TBR. The other book we're discussing this month is Kelly Bishop's memoir, The Third Gilmore Girl. And I have read this before. I read it in 9th grade English class, and then we watched the musical West Side Story, which is a modern interpretation of it. And when we finish reading this, we are going to do a comparison of the play to the performance in it that is portrayed in season 2, episode 9 of Gilmore Girls, Runaway Little Boy, where Paris is directing Romeo and Juliet for a school project. The next book that I'm reading is a reread. It is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Since I have read this book, I have also recently read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This book got 5 stars. The Hunting Party got 4 stars. The TV show of The Hunting Party that was on NBC last week not as good as the book. I gave the TV show 4 stars out of 10 on IMDb. The book, The Hunting Party, got 4 stars. This book got 5 stars. And the next book I'm planning to read by Lucy Foley is The Paris Apartment. The next book I am reading for the book club at the brewery that I'm in with Print Bookstore, and this month we are reading a poetry collection called Helen of Troy, 1993, and I am really enjoying it. I am almost done. This is a really short poetry collection. I am on page 59, and this is only 78 pages. So, let me share with you a line in one of the poems that I really like. Beautiful and suffering from a mortal wound, the swan chooses our boat ramp for her death song. Our mothers warned us this could happen. A creature past the point of endurance becomes its extremis, a lantern of heaven. This is from the poem The Spartan Women Discuss the Local Waterfowl, and I just love the description of the animal that they're observing that's about to die. I just think the writing in this book is beautiful. The book that I read for my January pick for this book club that I'm in is called Margot's Got Money Troubles, and I gave it 4.5 stars, and so I related this book to the episode of Friends where Ross has a relationship with Elizabeth because it's about a student and teacher who have a relationship, and then they end up having a kid together. Luckily, the relationship between Ross and Elizabeth did not go that far, but I really liked the writing in this book. It was my first book by the author. And this book is about this girl's coming of age as she raises a kid on her own and starts her own business. And I can relate to the aspect of this character's experience where she is talking about making her content for the social media platform she's on, because it reminds me of what I do for YouTube and her her parasocial relationship with this guy she has a crush on in the internet reminds me of all the experience I went through with the Matthew Perry hackers in 2023 when I was trying to interview him about Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. So I gave Margot's Got Money Troubles 4.5 stars. And the last book I wanted to talk about today is Welcome to the Hayam Dong Bookshop by Hwang Bo-rem, translated by Shauna Tan. This book was recommended to me by Gabby Reads, and it's set in Japan, and it's about a bookstore, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really sweet, and the writing in this is very beautiful. I'm on page 146. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope everybody has a good weekend. We're supposed to get more snow tomorrow, so I hope everybody stays safe in the bad weather. And enjoy the Super Bowl. I am rooting for Kansas City. Have a good weekend.